Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Sit Downs with Charlie Brown. I'm your host, DJ Charlie Brown, or whatever you choose to call me. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we are back. The MLB, one of baseball's crowning jewels when it comes to the sport itself, which also happens to be the league that is likely going to be experiencing a lockout at the end of the season. Many people can delude themselves into thinking they will kiss and make up eventually. We all know it's coming. When owners are quoted to be stockpiling funds for such a war, it's going to get ugly. How long is it projected to last? No idea. But at the very least, we can enjoy one more season until it eventually goes away for the time being. A lot has happened in the past few months with baseball, and as 32 teams prep for another go-around, let's check up on them, shall we? The Baltimore Orioles. Last year was a cluster truck that nobody wants to relive. The hope is that Craig Albernaz, which I apologize if I butcher that name, can revitalize a lot of the stagnation with the young hitting core. The goal for the O's this offseason was to fix both the power in their lineup and starting pitching. So far, one of those goals was accomplished as they paid Pete Alonso a very pretty penny to defect from the New York Mets, which, to be honest, he was eager to come. The hope is that alongside Rutschman, Henderson, and Holliday, it could be a deadly combination for pitchers in the AL to have to face. When Holliday gets back from injury, of course. However, I do question on what they're doing with their rotation. As it stands, it's Trevor Rogers, Kyle Bradish, Shane Baz, Dean Kramer, and Zach Eflin. Nowhere near an inspiring group, in my honest opinion. This is what has made me bullish on the O's this time around. They have a ton of potential in the batter's box, but it doesn't help when the pitching is a liability. However, I would recommend you guys start getting it together soon. Rutschman and Henderson are eligible for arbitration at the end of the year, and Gunnar Henderson is a Boris client. You can do the math in that regard. Good luck, O's. You're going to need it. The Boston Red Sox. Last year saw them finally get it together and see them finally start emerging as an elite core, despite being so scared to spend money. Their defeat in the wild card at the hands of their hated rival proves that they're getting closer and Beantown wants blood. The main goal for them was to shore up starting pitching, as it was their main weakness for a majority of the past few years. To a lot of people's surprise, I think they accomplished that goal. Sonny Gray was traded from St. Louis, and they signed Ranger Suarez to go with their young arms in the rotation, the perfect kind of guys to help fit that Red Sox team. Many people will point to the hole that Alex Bregman leaves, but that really isn't an issue if I'm being honest. As long as Story, Duran, and Abreu can hold their stride with Anthony Mayer and newly added Wilson Contreras, they should be fine in that regard. Also, I'd recommend you make a decision on Tristan Casas, because it would be really nice and not having him go back to his old form. I would also recommend you guys start trying to save up your money if you guys are truly in this mode of not really spending a ton of money. Duran, Houck, Casas, and more are closing in on extension eligibility. Otherwise, brace yourself, MLB. Beantown has its swagger back and is about to run wild on us. The New York Yankees. For a team that's considered one of the marquee teams, they had a surprisingly very underwhelming offseason. Obviously, they didn't have much holes to fill, but the fact their only seismic move was re-upping Cody Bellinger is kind of disappointing. I'm fully aware that Judge, Stanton, and co. are likely still going to be launching barrages across America. Same can go with their pitching staff, which has Fried, Heel, and Schlichter already dealing, and Garrett Cole scheduled to come back. However, I don't know if this is really going to work out, and no, I am not saying that as someone who despises them. I'm not saying they are going to outright collapse. They have the talent here to win a lot of games. My problem is their performance in October and the most critical games. They have failed immensely over the past few years, and nothing about the team has really changed. Cashman and Boone are still here running the ship and likely not going to be removed anytime soon. Those two can be a big argument for a lot of the reasons why the Yankees can't achieve anything greater than what they have right now. That being said, I look forward for it to be another year where their cancerous fan base hypes them up to oblivion and it comes crashing down at a moment's notice. You may think I'm being biased as a Minnesota sports fan. Unlike you, I have generational trauma caused by my teams while you get the silver spoon, buddy. The Tampa Bay Rays. I will say that I was a little disappointed. I thought that the new ownership would have maybe gone after something big in the offseason. Then again, it really wasn't a necessity considering the other priorities that they've been having to deal with. Speaking of which, there is an update regarding their stadium dilemma. While they will be heading back to the Trop this year, it'll be on a rather short stay. Ownership is already in the process of beginning to work on a new stadium for 2028, especially given it the fact that it's near the Buccaneers facility and not St. Petersburg. You're going to take it. As for the team itself, I view it more as a developmental year with house money. Their elite hitting core is already strong with Caminero and Aranda, and they have a ton more prospects already on the way. However, I think the pitching staff with them is TBD, with relying on Steven Matz and Nick Martinez to be inning eaters. Regardless, we know that they will always find a way to do more with less. So it's either going to be a chaotic mess or ass kicked in the wild card. Which one will it likely be? That's kind of up to the beholder to decide. The Toronto Blue Jays. The bitterness of defeat still lingers in the hearts and minds of Canada's team all across the Providence. So close to the mountaintop, only to be shoved off at the 11th hour by a Yoshi and the pretentious rich kids of the West Coast. The good news is for Canada is that their off-season of needs and things to do was rather short. Unfortunately, they did have to say goodbye to Bo Bichette, but he didn't really have an impact in the World Series, and it did seem like they were ready to move on from him. Besides, they can use the money to improve the other flaws they already had in their loaded armory. They finally were able to poach their own Japanese export in Kazuma Okamoto to fill the void that Bichette leaves and be extra support for Vladdy, Springer, Kirk, and more Blue Jays hitters. The pitching rotation is also getting reinforced with the Savage making his full-time debut alongside Barrios, Gausman, and their newest acquisition, the mustached man Dylan Cease. Same goes for the bullpen, which didn't see too much turnover besides one or two names. Besides them, most of the hitting core is returning from last year's run, and they are arguably another AL favorite among the group. Barring any serious injury or regression to old narratives, they should be sitting among the elite in the AL this year. Now, watch as they proceed to fall apart and can't have nice things because they love being dubbed the 51st state, which, to be honest, they aren't, all right? Don't listen to people, all right? The Chicago White Sox. It says something that among all the teams in the AL Comedy Central, the White Sox spent the most money in the offseason, even though it's barely anything game-changing aside from one move. Now, I'm not denying Munetaka Murakami is a special talent and probably wanted to be in a smaller market. Just not sure if Southside is the best place for player development. Even with his greatness on the roster, the White Sox are no way considered upper tier yet. Their star center fielder and the final piece of the 2021 team, Luis Roberts, got sent up to Queens. The silver lining is that a majority of their roster is very young and is likely to see improvements. The hitting core went through some growing pains last year, but hopefully Kyle Teal, Colson Montgomery, and more can start hitting their stride. As for pitching, it's a lot of work when you're relying on Sean Holcomb and Anthony Kay as starters. Sadly, unless they redefine every single narrative about their players and culture stereotypes, it's likely going to be another year where they kind of suck. Or I shouldn't say kind of, they really probably will suck. Don't worry, White Sox fans, I know I may be a little harsh and you may call me out as being a Twins fan, but here's the thing. You just got to wait 3 or 5 more years until Reinsdorf officially is out of the picture. It will go quick. Trust me. The Cleveland Guardians. As much as I try very hard to keep my bias with these guys, it is incredibly difficult. They aggravate me more than the cancer up in the Bronx to lords over my team every year. Do you know how hard it is to pull that off? Last year, this team pulled off the world's most incredible BS run, aided by the Tigers' collapse, to swipe the division away at the 11th hour. Afterwards, they proceeded to get their butts handed in the wild card game. You know what they did? Little to nothing. Did you expect anything less from another Midwest team that can't compete with the big boys? No major trades, no major signings, just sleeping all offseason like nothing is wrong when they clearly have a couple issues to address. That was until they finally woke up and gave more money to their golden boy Jose Ramirez to continue his success and then gave some money to Rhys Hoskins. You can point out to how they signed a bunch of minor leaguers, handled arbitrations, etc., but that's nothing that's going to move the needle for this team sometimes. Also doesn't help that rumors about trading Stephen Kwan are still at large, especially since Cleveland is very unlikely to pay him. Yet no matter how hard I try to deny it, we all know the result. They will play wildly mediocre or chaotic up until the All-Star break, go on a magical run to surge back into the race after the deadline, and then stumble into the playoffs to either go on a deep run or go home early. I swear, this city just channels all their power into Jose Ramirez to carry the team on his back. Answer me how they do it. I have to know! I have to know! All right, I'm fine. Now that that's over, let's move on. The Detroit Tigers. Last year saw the Tigers finally get together and ascend to greater things, even though they did collapse down the strap and blew the division title for the final month. This calls for an extra special reward, lowballing the hell out of Tyreek Skubal. Yes, one of the best pitchers in baseball who won a Cy Young is getting lowballed by his own team in arbitration talks. To be fair, I do not blame the Tigers because they aren't in a position where they can make him the highest paid pitcher in baseball. So get ready for the inevitability when he is eligible for free agency and is likely going to get a bag from LA or New York. As far as the rest of their offseason, it was a decent and a couple good moves. Gleyber Torres is back in the fold along with Kenley Jansen to be a new asset to the bullpen. But I think the real story for them this year is one of homecoming. Justin Verlander has come back to the land where he got his name to put a bow on his Hall of Fame career. Even if he is nowhere near the same player, he's purely vibes, and Detroit shouldn't have to worry too much. Majority of their team is still here and is going to be ready for opening day. With the division still wide open and with Skubal likely to go on another warpath, especially being pissed off after being in a contract year, you're likely going to be in an October ball game. Just do yourselves a favor and maybe avoid the major collapses again. Or maybe do it worse this time. Anything could help. The Kansas City Royals. Like many teams in the Central, the Royals weren't exactly the biggest spenders on the open market. I understand the reasoning behind it, but it just feels like they could be significantly better if they got a few extra guys in there. Getting Lane Thomas is a nice piece, but it just feels like they could have gotten more than just him. That said, it's a very interesting group that might be a sleeper team this season. Bobby Witt Jr. has already proven, but the likes of Jack Caglione and the next wave of prospects are hitting the shores. Same goes for the pitching, which is getting Noah Cameron, Chris Bubich, and Cole Reagans back, and hopefully going to stay consistent and healthy. Same goes for the bullpen, which should hopefully keep them in form and maintain leads for most of the games. Regardless, the Royals are turning the right page. It just requires more patience with development. At the very least, you can hold on to the fact you're likely going to be the third place team in this division by default. And now we got to get to this one. Okay. That wasn't a beer, that was a Diet Coke, because I think a lot of people know I didn't drink. The Minnesota Twins. Well. You know, after the last video I did and once we hit the offseason, I held out a small shred of delusional hope for them. I truly did. You know, I thought that maybe it could be we already hit the rock bottom and we couldn't go lower, you know? Just a hunch. But after this offseason, it is proven that this team doesn't know what they're doing and is becoming a raging dumpster fire. Oh my God, jeez. Like, the only positive is we finally got some light on who our mysterious saver of ownership was to help with the... If you remember, we had the massive debt and a mysterious partner came in to erase it. It turns out it was Craig Leopold, the Glick family, and a few others, who I actually like those guys. You know, Craig Leopold, he owns the Wild. He has done a great job with that organization, and he cares about the product. So that I'm actually happy about. So I'm very excited for that. It's not ideal since the Pohlads still hold majority, but at the very least, it puts the team in a better position for a potential sale, and these guys actually do care about the product. However, that's it. Everything else has been aggravating in the worst ways possible. Joe Pohlad was a terrible fit as CEO, and so out of touch that he was relieved of his duties like almost, God, I wanted to say like a month or two after everything went down, or or it was the same day they revealed that the ownership thing, as what I was reported from the internet. Like, in his place, it's going to be the faint attempt to save face his brother Tom. However, given some of his comments, I say that in quotation marks, that were made during the fan tour, it's clear he might just be as bad and more tone deaf than his brother. Also explains why an attempt to convince people to re-up season tickets, what they did was he actually got on the phones and called people. And let's just say, from what I'm hearing, there were some words that I can't say on this program that were said to him directly. So that gives you the perfect excuse to fire longtime president Derek Falvey 4 weeks before the season starts. Look, I understand Falvey wears some blames for what went down on the deadline and a lot of other stuff, but why did you wait to do this till January? Why did you not do this the same day as Rocco got fired so that you can conduct interviews? You know? So now Jeremy Zoll, 4 weeks out from the season, has to pull double duty as GM and president, which, to be honest, if you want my prediction, he's merely a yes man and is going to be for the Stooges at the top of this organization. But moving off that, we get to the managerial search, which got botched out of the gate. Look, after moving off Rocco, a guy who won you this team's first wild card game for the first time in over 2 decades, essentially you needed a hire that was going to inspire confidence and help repair the broken relationship with fans that was clearly already starting to deteriorate from back in 2024, which is now completely destroyed, if you haven't already guessed. When it came to the managerial search, they needed a guy who was going to help repair the relationship overall. You know, even if they were interviewing people who were having previous ties to the organization, I felt like a guy like Roason or someone who was young and upcoming could be really good for helping the prospects gel and help bring a fresh perspective to the organization. But that makes way too much logic, They went out and get the guy nobody wanted in Derek Shelton. Look, I get the no hire was probably fixing this team overnight, but how did you manage to screw this up when it was so simple? Shelton was the bench coach under Rocco and has a lot of the same tactics. It also doesn't help he had very little success as a manager in Pittsburgh, even with elite talent, and is also costing you more as you're paying Rocco's final year of his salary. Congratulations, you incinerated more money to get a manager nobody wanted and has one of the worst winning percentage of any twin skipper in the past 60 years. And also doesn't help that, like Zoll, he is probably a puppet for the leaders at the top of the food chain. The only thing I have to be proud of this offseason is simply the fact that Byron Buxton and Pablo Lopez weren't traded off to get the payroll even lower than it already is. Even then, we still lost. Pablo Lopez, literally day one of spring training, he goes out there for a simple BP or bullpen or a throwing assignment. Guess what happened? First pitch he tears his Tommy John. Great, so now he's out for the year, which is even more unfortunate because his contract expires in 2028, and who knows if that was even the last time we're going to see him in a Twins jersey. Byron Buxton is also still here as well, but here's the neat part. He got pissed because of the rumors that were flying all over the offseason that the poll ads didn't come out and say, we're not trading him. Way to go, guys. Such a great way to treat the one guy who actually cares about this city and fan base. Joe Ryan was also kept, but the likelihood of him being traded passes every day, especially after getting his arbitration done at the buzzer. And to be honest, I think he's probably going to be the next guy who gets shipped off at the deadline, which makes me sad. They also proceeded to repeat the same model every other small market team with cheapskate ownership does and go to the bargain bin and goodwill for additions to fix the cataclysmic holes on this team. 33-year-old Josh Bell in his quest to collect every single jersey and play the gaping hole at first base. Orlando Arcia and Gio Urshela to be placeholders and minor leaguers. World Series champion Anthony Banda. Taylor Rogers and Liam Hendricks are back. They're still good players, right? Look, as far as the team goes, I have very little expectations for them this year. The team has some great pieces in place and prospects are in the farm system. I think if you look at the top 100, I think at least 6 or 7 of those guys are with the Twins. But here's my problem. I do not trust anyone in this organization to handle them properly. I think, Shelton's a great guy. Like, I think he has a great reputation with players, and there's a lot of guys. He's really a nice guy from what I hear. The problem is, I just don't think he's the right guy for a young team that's trying to develop players. Ownership says we're going to be competitive in 2026. My brothers in Christ, read the room. Players are pissed off because you value ticket sales over wins and getting to the playoffs. The entire management is 75% yes men who are afraid to admit the truth to you. You and the fan base is so fed up with everything, they are actively trashing you whenever they get. The only thing that is giving me hope about this organization is the fact that likely we're getting a lockout next season. Even if there is still a chance they are here when it ends, I get the feeling they will be putting the team back up for sale whether they like it or not. Let's be honest. A big talking point in the CBA discussion is going to be a lot of these owners, like the Pohlads, who treat their teams like a business and not a fun side project, which it's supposed to be. Owning a professional sports team is not meant to be a business. It's meant to be a fun side project billionaires have when they have too much money and need something to use as a tax write-off. I am fully aware of the phrase, the grass isn't always greener on the other side. There is a serious, and that's true, like there's a serious chance that the next owner we get does something even worse than what the Pohlads are doing right now. They can deny it all they want, but you go anywhere in this state and people feel the exact same way. We're tired of the world laughing at us. We're tired of simply making the wild card game only to not even see past 2 weeks. We're tired of constantly watching the Yankees invade Target Field and then obliterating us. My gripe with the Pohlads has never been personal. Like, I don't even know them. Like, that's serious. I don't know them. And from what I hear from some people who do, they're actually very nice people who have done a lot for the organization in, like, developing relationships with the community and for the city as a whole. But here's the thing. What I do know is that they should nowhere be owning the team, even with the history they have with it, especially in the past 2 years alone. Nearly every relationship with the players, fans, city, heck, I will even go far to even say some of the alumni has been tainted and destroyed. After 2023, I truly thought it was the start of something special. We lost in the divisional to the Astros, but I mean, you looked at the team we had, it just felt like we could actually have the team that, maybe doesn't win a World Series, but maybe they could at least make a ALCS or something but 2 years later, we're here. People are upset. Literally the only guys who are still around from that team, I think, are Pablo, Buck, Larnach, Ryan. Maybe was Ober on that team? I think Ober was. Oh yeah, Ober was on that team. But I think just a few handful of guys remain from that such a special moment for the organization after years of not even able to win a playoff game. But here's the thing: we're just frustrated, and I'm going to continue to keep this message simple. And a lot of other people are going to be echoing it, in the comment sections and answering the calls that the Pohlads will try to make. We're trying to spell it out so they can get it. Sell the team. Look, you may think I'm a hater. I'm not. Trust me. I love this team. I'm passionate about this team. But here's the thing. I do this because I care. I'm willing to do this dance as long as I physically and mentally can until they can get it through. We want changes. And if you can't provide it, give us someone who will. All right? Look, I wish the guys good luck this year because Lord knows this city really needs a lot of help right now. We just need something to be happy about. All right, now that I've clearly gotten all of the emotional negativity I have towards my own team out of the way, let's focus on someone else, shall we? The Houston Astros. For a team that fancies themselves as being competitive, it feels like the best chance for them has kind of been lost if I'm being honest. Years of title chasing have led the team nowhere near where they were at the peak of their career. It also shocks me that they weren't as heavy in free agency as many people thought they would be. Valdez, Cartini, and Dubin are went to other teams respectively, and their only purchase this offseason was being Kevin Biggio to continue his family legacy. While they have talent like Correa, Altuve, Jordan, and co., they are all in their mid to late 30s. Especially given the fact the average age of their pitching staff is 30, I have concerns about them being built on a rocky foundation. While I think they can be competitive and not fully bottom out, I'm not really sold on them, especially when they have very little in terms of prospects and one of the worst farm systems in baseball right now. I essentially view it like this. This year will be one of two things for them. Either a rocky start leading to a wildcard loss, or the official sign of the window slamming shut on them. While they do have the opportunity to change my thoughts on them, they certainly can do it. So I think we're going to just have to wait and see on what kind of Astros team we're getting this year. So good luck. And, I think realistically, who knows? Maybe they take a page out of 2017 and they return to their old form and take it personally on me. The LA Angels. Once again, the Angels reinforced their narratives of being a depressingly bad franchise. It's not even funny anymore. It's just numb to how bad this team has at wasting the career of Mike Trout, who is moving back to center field after last year's struggles. Especially given how he has already started to decline from last season, his durability concerns, and the fact he's turning 35 in August means they are getting close to officially wasting his career, even though, let's be real, they've been wasting it for a very long time now. Some people will think I'm going a little harsh and I have an agenda, or the Angels actually spend money unlike my team. But just because you spend money doesn't mean squat if it's spent poorly. Look at some of the moves they made in the offseason and tell me I'm wrong. The glass arm of Grayson Rodriguez, Drew Pomeranz, Jordan Morano, Vaughn Grisham, Alek Manoah, Kirby Yates, and Yoan Moncada? If this were 2020, it would be a solid squad. It's 2026. Half of these guys were outright told to leave and nowhere near what they were in the last 2 years. It's not all bad, as Taylor Ward, Zach Neto, Nolan Schummel, and Christian Moore can hopefully carry the bats. Problem is they are barren in the rotation and pen, and it's going to lead to disastrous results like normal. Kurt Suzuki, here is your 1-year contract, and watch out, as you're going to probably be asked to move the heavens and earth with this team. I'm fully expecting them to fail like every year, but if you're able to pull off something immaculate, that would really help with changing the narrative I have of you. Sell the team already, Artie. You wonder why Shohei left you? It's because you created a black hole in the middle of Anaheim. The homeless A's. The construction of the homeless A's new base in Sin City is still under construction. So once again, baseball is forced to play in the death trap of Sacramento for the time being. While I still feel that they should be in Oakland, and John Fisher is another one of the many serpents that have been a plague on baseball, they at least had a very productive offseason. Jacob Wilson had his breakout last year, and arguably a piece you want to build around, became a franchise cornerstone for them as he inked a new contract extension. A $7x10 million is good work for someone who can easily improve over time. Same for trading Jeff McNeil, which isn't bad even if he is overpaid. He's a solid stopgap for them, especially since they still have a massive prospect pool along with Rooker, Kurtz, Soderstrom, and more. Pitching is a lot to be desired, though, as the rotation is still waiting for a lot of guys still in A-ball, and the bullpen is no country for old men, as I like to describe it. Regardless, it's a solid on-the-field situation, while the off-field is still a PR nightmare. We all know what's going to happen. Once they get the place in Vegas, they will start spending money like crazy to get people to come, and people will. If there is any justice, Fisher will be on the list of owners who should be removed in the near future. Sadly, will likely won't, because the baseball gods don't play favorites. They simply just love that sweet hard green. The Seattle Mariners. They were so close. They were so close! On the edge of history, only to be slighted by their neighbors to the north. The Mariners are close. They just needed a few more reinforcements this offseason. Management agreed with this statement, so they decided to get more firepower for the hot and cold bats, essentially. Josh Naylor was wisely extended to become the long-term answer at first base. Brendan Donovan to fill the void that Jorge Polanco leaves in his departure as well. It's not the ideal moves, but it's enough to work. especially since the likes of J-Rod, Big Dumper, their elite pitching staff, and more are all coming back. Speaking of which, justice for Cal Raleigh's MVP snub. Even though, let's be real, he was kind of being a dick in the WBC. Look, I know you guys have sky-high expectations and should easily be able to make the postseason, but I need you to avoid giving into your old vices. And I'm sorry if this is turning opinionated, it's just what I need to say to them. We all are aware the moment you guys get a sliver of success, you get way too high off of it and can prolapse. Can you not do that this time? You have way too much talent to underachieve and are straight up torturing us with this. Just please, for once in your life, do not disappoint. I swear I treat you guys like I treat my own team sometimes. The Texas Rangers. Ever since 2023, the Rangers have struggled to have success on a consistent basis. However, instead of doing a full-scale rebuild, they are retooling on the fly, which might not be as bad considering the likes of Wyatt Langford, Evan Carter, and more prospects they have stockpiled over the years. The downside is it results in having to say goodbye to a lot of key contributors from the 2023 team. Bruce Bochy's departure led to Skip Shoemaker returning from the recycle bin to revitalize the team. Sadly, they did have to say goodbye to Semyon, Heim, and Adolis Garcia as the players on the field. That said, you still have Corey Seager here long-term and the new acquisition Brandon Nimmo to help mentor the youth coming up. While it's not ideal for hitting, majority of their resources went into retooling the gas can known as their pitching. Mackenzie Gore brought in from Washington to help Eovaldi and DeGrom shore up the rotation. Add to it with Alexis Diaz, Jacob Junis, and bringing back Chris Martin for the bullpen, and it is a very strong unit. Heck, Jordan Montgomery's back in the fold after his vacation in Arizona. So far, it seems to be a house money year for Texas and just really looking for development, if anything. They have a lot of interesting pieces that are intriguing, but they need time before they can become what they envision. Time will tell on how the cards play out for them. I mean, here's the thing. At least you guys have the glory of 2023. I mean, not many other teams get that. The Atlanta Braves. For a team that's supposed to be one of the premier clubs in the National League, the Braves had another underwhelming offseason. I get that they had a ton of elite pieces already locked up, but it just feels like they are shoring up a flawed product. It starts with Brian Snitker's retirement led to their new skipper, Walt Weiss, who's not really inspiring. As for the offseason, it was mostly adding supplemental pieces to the likes of Acuna, Olsen, Strider, and more. Ha-Seong Kim, Brett Wisely, Mike Yastrzemski, and Jonah Heim for the hitting core. Pitching has been added to with the likes of Robert Suarez and Martin Perez on minor league deals. While they don't need much, it really doesn't exactly blow me away for a team that should be in the NL running. Do I think they can make a run? Sure, but considering how they've struggled with health and consistency, I really don't know if they can. Especially with who they are sharing a division with, I don't see how this is getting better. Also doesn't help that Jurickson Profar is suspended the year due to PEDs. Seriously, dude, it's your second suspension because of this. One more and they'll throw the book at you. You need to be smarter, man. That being said, at least it won't be all bad for the Braves. At the very least, you might be able to have a good filler until Georgia football starts up again. The Miami Marlins. I'm starting to believe that this team lucked its way into those World Series wins, if I'm being honest. I get that ownership has been chaotic, but it feels like they aren't even trying at this point. Yes, they have a rich farm system with a lot of great players both in the show and on the way. Problem is, how are they supposed to do anything to take the next step if no one's there to invest in them? Their offseason was trading Edward Cabrera and Ryan Weathers for more prospect, as well as signing a bunch of buy low guys in the form of Chris Paddock, Peter Fairbanks, and Christopher Morel. Also, Sandy Alcantara is somehow still here despite rumors of trade going on year 3 now. The Marlins have a solid young core. There's no denying that. Xavier Edwards, Kyle Stowers, Otto Lopez, Connor Norby, and Augustine Ramirez are all young bats that can be better with time. Same goes for the rotation, which is getting Yuri Perez and Max Meyer back from their injuries last year. But it feels like there's nothing to help solidify the structure. Maybe it changes with the prospects on the way, but I'm just really not a fan of them. However, stranger things have happened, you know. Who knows what they're capable of? Like, heck, maybe they go on to win the World Series like they have in the past few years, in like the past decade or so. I don't know. The New York Mets. If you thought last year's collapse was bad, this offseason was the Mets getting dragged over the coals on a repeated basis. I wish that I was being hyperbolic with that statement, but this offseason saw things escalated very quickly in Queens. Apparently, in his quest to change the Mets' terrible ways, Daddy Steve Cohen only brought the newest era of calamity and despise for their former savior known as Grimace. It started with Pete Alonso taking a trip down to Baltimore and Edwin Diaz taking his trumpets to the opposite coastline. Who needs those two when you have Lindor and Soto, who apparently do not hate each other and are absolutely thrilled to be playing with each other in Queens? Speaking of Lindor, he's going to be out to start the year with a broken hamate. But don't worry, kids. Cohen and his band of yes men are going to get you so many players to fix this circus act. Marcus Semien, Devin Williams, Luke Weaver, Luis Roberts Jr., Jorge Polanco, the greatness of Bo Bichette. Heck, the homeless A's were able to swallow Jeff McNeil for us. Who cares the fact that Carlos Mendoza and David Stearns are still here to drill this team into the ground? Just watch as we continue to ruin Nolan McLean's career and can give you the best comedy in baseball. You think I'm being harsh as an outsider, but you know how this plays out, Mets fans. It's going to end in such a Mets way, it's not even funny anymore. Only the best for the biggest circus this side of baseball. The Phillies. Do or time this year, Philly. I don't want to bring up what happened last year against the Dodgers, as it's already been discussed ad nauseum. The big story for them this year was regarding the likes of Schwarber and Riamoto, who were entering the free agents market. Thankfully, both were extended to small deals to keep them here for their already loaded hitting core. However, it comes with the greatest loss of all, the tragedy man himself, Nick Castellanos. To be honest, he really wasn't doing good and was inactive for most of the playoffs. In his place, the legend of Adolis Garcia to fill the role and be extra firepower for the bats. To supplement the pitching, they go out and got Brad Keller and Zach Pop to solidify their rotation and bullpen in place. Like I said, it's a critical year the Phillies get moving this time around. Harper, Riamoto, Walker, Nola, Wheeler, and Turner are creeping up on their mid-30s. They won't be around forever to help guide the team, especially with their really weak farm system because of all the moves they've made. The pieces are in place, Philly. I'll make it simple. Get it done. No questions asked. If not, you'll get the same treatment as Kevin Patullo did where they egged his house. The Washington Nationals. It's year 6 of the rebuild, guys. You should be starting to turn the corner at this point. I get that everyone goes at their own speed, but you would think they would have had more to show for at this point, especially when the only notable thing they did this offseason was ship their ace Mackenzie Gore to Texas for a solid return. The prospects they got were nice, and they were able to snag up Harry Ford from Seattle and Luis Perales from Boston, but they did little to help the team now. Mostly waiver claim guys like Miles Michaelis, Joey Weimer, and Forrest Griffin. While it is true they have a lot of young pieces in James Wood, Dylan Cruz, Darren Lyle, and Brady House, I'm concerned, when the team's best pitcher is either Forrest Griffin or Josiah Gray, it's dire. While more prospects should hopefully be inbound soon, I'm concerned with Washington. It seems like it's another bad year of quality hitting being left to die because of bad pitching. Maybe someday you will get back to the glory forms of 2019. I miss those days, man. They were really fun, The Chicago Cubs. The lovable losers finally got their swagger back after years of stagnation. They know this, and they are close, as last year clearly showed it as they made a run to the NLDS, apologies. So, like any proper team would, they went out and got the best they could on the open market. Kyle Tucker sold out for the bag? No worries, we'll go get his old wingman and Alex Bregman to be the hot corner. Edward Cabrera is available? Sign us up! Even better, Shota Imanga is back as well as Theobald Martin and more. Everything's in place, Cubbies. Elite hitting core with Happ, Bush, PCA, Swanson, and more. Phenomenal pitching and bullpen support. However, I want to make sure you remember to play up to expectations this time. We've seen you guys underachieve heavily in the past after major success, so do not mess this up again. Otherwise, the entire Central will be mocking you for spending all that money to get barely to 500. The Cincinnati Reds. Last year saw this team become the Make-A-Wish kid in the playoffs and received a belt to ass courtesy of the LA Dodgers. While the Mets can cope and see that it should have been them, the Reds will relish it in that regard. However, unfortunately, like a lot of other teams in the Central, you can't spend a ton to add on the team. They didn't need much, but the hope is that this year they can figure out this thing called consistency. You know what that is? It's called keeping the same form on a repeated basis, all right? The talent is there in spades from Ellie De La Cruz, Spencer Steer, and many more other players on that team. It also helps when you get Eugenio Suarez back after his voyage away from Cincinnati. However, the main improvement was to go to their bullpen to aid their rotation. Emilio Pagan is back, Caleb Ferguson, Brooke Burke, and more are supplemental pieces in that regard. However, it's handicapped as Hunter Green is going to be out for a bit with an injury. Do I think it's enough to win the division? Probably not, but a wild card is certainly on the table if the cards fall right. At the very least, Phil Castellini isn't saying anything damning this time around. He just refuses to spend on a team like a bunch of other owners, which, to be honest, if you guys should feel bad about him, don't. He's one of many. Let's be real. The Milwaukee Brewers. The miracle run last year from the Brew Crew was special going all the way to the NLCS, but came crashing down by the LA Dodgers. That said, compared to a lot of other teams in the NL, they have the core to run it back. Hence why their offseason saw them cash out on the likes of Freddie Peralta and Isaac Collins, shout out Maple Grove, for bulk returns and prospects. Same goes with the deal with Boston to get more prospects to help restock the team with youth. The hitting core is there with Yelich, Churio, Contreras, Frelick, and company able to compete with the NL. Same can be said for the pitching rotation with Mizorowski, Woodruff, and Patrick. The bullpen didn't see much reinforcement, but they have the ability to pull these random guys out of nowhere to become elite pitchers. Just keep pace with the Cubbies, and I'm sure things will be fine. You aren't going to underachieve this year, right? Right? The Pittsburgh Pirates. I will pretend to learn my lesson and keep my expectation low with the Pirates. At the very least, I give you credit that unlike a lot of other small market teams, they did a good job this offseason. Did you see Paul Skeens play real baseball in the WBC? You need to capitalize off that before you inevitably lose him to the Yankees or Dodgers. Good news is they kind of got the memo and were able to get some nice pickups this offseason. Ryan O'Hearn for a 2-year deal at first base is a solid piece. Same goes with getting Brandon Lowe and Jake Magnum from Tampa Bay to revamp the infield. Sadly, Kutch isn't here anymore as it was time, and let's be real, it was just depressing to see him try and save this sinking ship. The hope for the Pirates is that the Bats can finally get it figured out, aided by a dynamo pitching core. Skeens, Keller, and the returning Jared Jones will hopefully carry this team, and pray to God the bullpen doesn't implode. The Yinzers are already suffering because of the Steelers. Maybe give them something more to cheer for in this town. You know, a home playoff game at PNC could really help a certain stadium lease expiring soon. Just a thought, though. I'll let you guys figure it out. The St. Louis Cardinals. It has finally happened, boys and girls. Something that I would have never thought of happening since the day I started this podcast, which is going on like almost 6 years now. Yes, 6. When news that Cardinals fans are going to celebrate. Congratulations! You're officially tanking! You know what this calls for? A good old-fashioned fire sale. Sonny Gray traded up to Beantown. Brendan Donovan to the Emerald City. Nolan Arenado to the desert. Everything must go! You guys wanted players in free agency? All right, fine. We'll get Ryan Stanek, Ramon Urias, and Dustin May as fillers, okay? We'll also extend Oli Marmol to be the manager for the foreseeable future as well. Look, in all seriousness, this was long overdue for them, and this isn't me joking around. The team was going nowhere, and it's clear changes were needed desperately. They have some decent and young prospects, but it's going to take time before we know if they can become anything. While the NL celebrates your demise from the time being, your multiple championships will comfort you in the meantime. Move to the side, everyone. The Cardinals are constructing a tank that is going to take them to the very special place of all. Draft Pick City! The Arizona Diamondbacks. Am I the only one kind of getting warning signs from Arizona? Not that for anything they are really doing bad, but it just feels like the entire team is stale. In a faint attempt to try and recreate the 2023 magic, they load up with more depth acquisitions for the team. St. Louis left him out on the curb, so why not go get Nolan Arenado for third base? Can really help with ticket sales as well. The perfect guy to put alongside Lawler, Thomas, Carroll, and many more youth they have on the team. Same can be said for Carlos Santana, who can be the old man and collect another jersey to his MLB collection. Pitching should also be a boost with Burns and Gallen returning from injury. With a few of the younger other guys, it's just like I really don't know if I can be confident, especially since Paul Sewell is going to be closing again. Like, I think overall, like, in terms of the actual NL, like, they're one of the weaker teams, which sucks to say. And it also doesn't help that they're another team that many people are wondering, is their future going to be in Arizona? You know, obviously they're going through stadium turmoil right now with their ownership. And I think realistically, you know that Ryan Smith, who's out in Utah right now, he owns the Jazz and the Mammoth. He's sitting there patiently waiting for the opportunity. Hey, he already had enough money. He had enough money to buy two teams. He would love a third to his arsenal. The Colorado Rockies. Do I really have to talk about the Rockies? Feels like such a waste to give so much effort to an organization that doesn't care. This team was speed running their way to the worst all-time record last year and was terrible in every aspect on and off the field. So what does the new management do to fix the imminent issues on the team? The same as last time. Absolutely nothing besides the bare minimum. You expect me to believe that Michael Lorenzen isn't going to be left for dead in the Rocky Mountains? The likes of Joe McCarthy and Eddie Julian will bounce back to their 2023 vintages? Seriously, it's a never-ending cycle with you guys, and it makes me frustrated. It's going to be a year where half of the team fails to meet expectations aside from a few guys stat padding, every arm exploding because of Coors Field physics, and the Monforts doing the bare minimum to make a healthy profit. The only reason why this team still exists is for 2007 and managed to sell out that gorgeous ballpark out in Denver. It's a bummer because as the few fans left at this point have to watch a glorified home run derby every home game. Look, on the bright side, at least you can watch Ethan Holiday hopefully make his long voyage to the show. They wasted his dad's career, and you best believe they probably will waste his career as well. So, here's hoping. The LA Dodgers. Is it the off season? Yep. Do the Dodgers still have their infinite debugger and money glitch on? Of course they do, because that city is somehow built on the El Dorado itself. You can come at me for being so critical, but we all know the Dodgers are a big reason for baseball likely getting a lockout next season. They aren't breaking any rules, but the fact they are outspending 9 different countries' GDPs while most teams can't afford a fraction of that kind of is. To be fair, I can understand swiping up Edwin Diaz. Their staff and pen were a flaming wreck last season down the stretch and is going to be useful for them when it gets deep into October. However, when you follow that up with signing one of the top chips in Kyle Tucker to a 4-year contract when you really didn't need an outfielder is kind of like, what are you doing? Like, you're throwing him on a team that's already loaded with a generational talent, 2 Hall of Famers, 5 All-Star caliber hitters, and a pitching staff full of Cy Young candidates. Of course people are going to be upset. While the games still need to be played, it almost feels like it wouldn't even matter if they get the 1 seed or the wild card. They will proceed to dominate the league and win it all once again, lording over us with a three-peat, and how they aren't ruining baseball as argued it's not their fault. It's going to be a long summer, isn't it, eh? The San Diego Padres. The million-dollar question for San Diego is this the year it finally comes together? Ever since 2022, they have struggled to stay consistent or reach the same heights of that year. It also doesn't help that majority of their money is locked down into their current core. They've made limited moves in free agency as a result. The good news is that the same team's architect, A.J. Preller, is staying on board and got an extension. Say what you want, he actually tries and has actually done a really good job for them, aside from the Preller-Palooza era, which we don't talk about. Dylan Cease departing for Canada led to German Marquez, Griffin Canning, Walker Buehler, and the re-sign of Michael King to help out in his place. The core of Machado, Tatis, Merrill, and Cronenworth get the newest Asian export in Korea, Sungmoon Song. I apologize if I did that horribly. Yeah, I'm not great at pronunciations. Complemented by Miller returning as the closer and majority of no turnover in place, they are really set for this year. However, this needs to be the year, without question. With the core getting older and the window slowly closing, you're not going to get every chance at it. There is only one thing that needs to be done, and no matter the cost. Beat LA. At some point or another, you're going to have to get through Big Brother. Might as well try and do it sooner rather than later, boys. The San Francisco Giants. Even though I feel like the Giants are deluding themselves a little bit, I do give them credit for strides to improve the team. Instead of going for someone who is already in the show or a known name to manage the team, they look to the college ranks for their next manager. Tony Vitello was chosen to be the next skipper of this team and lead them into the new era of Giants baseball. He did win a national championship, so he has a good reputation and record at Tennessee. Unproven, yes, but the core is very here with a lot of young pieces. Jung-Ho Lee returning and Bryce Eldridge's debut should help the likes of Chapman, Willie Adames, Rafael Devers, and Helio Ramos get back to winning and bring consistency to the Bay Area. Same goes for their free agency pickups in Harrison Bader and contact specialist Luis Arraez. I miss you, Luis. Pitching is my main concern as it's the no country for old men. On top of Logan and Robbie Ray, it's added to with Tyler Mahle, Adrian Hoser, and Landon Roop. Okay. Same argument can be made for the bullpen, which it's a lot of guys who I did have to do Google research for. My research concludes it's at the very least, they're likely to finish third outright unless they get destroyed or fall apart. The issue is I don't know if they can get to a wild card or even past it. At the very least, I can say you might be turning the corner and have a vision of what this team could be after I've been critical for many years, so I apologize for that. At least people hope because the Bay really expects greatness, They are used to winning out there. Might get to it. So now that you've reached the end, we can go over predictions of what I have for this season. Oh boy, it's even with the lockout impending, I think it's a total who is going to even win this year. So starting over in the AL, I think the AL East, I'm going with Toronto. I think they're one of the better teams, and I think they have the firepower to compete with the Yankees. Central, I think it's Cleveland. I don't know how or why. They're going to find a way. I just know it. AL West, I'm going to go Seattle. I think, Astros are on the downswing, and I think they're the team that's most complete and ready to run it back and go for another shot at competing for a World Series. Wild cards, I have Boston, Baltimore, and Detroit. New York, I just really don't know. I don't think that they have the ammunition this time around to really compete with it because I think they showed a lot of cracks this last time around. So I think that's my takeaway on it. Now moving to the NL, I think the East, I think the Phillies get back to it. I think they're the most complete team in that division. Maybe you can make an argument for the Mets or the Braves, but I think it's going to be the Phillies to lose at this point. Central, Cubs as well. I think, truthfully, the Cubs are one of the better teams in the NL, and I think a sneaky team that if you had to give me a choice, could they beat the Dodgers? I think they could have a good shot. I really do. I think they could do it. It's a possibility. What NL West, Dodgers by default, man. They no explanation needed. Wild cards, I have Padres, Brewers, and the third one was tough for me, but I think with how low the expectations are, I think the Mets can do it. So we'll have to see. But in any ways, I hope to see. That's going to be it for this time around. I hope to see you guys back here at the All-Star break with hopefully in better spirits because Lord knows my baseball team's going to drive me nuts this season. So With that being said, see you guys next time. Peace!